Howdy, 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 my name is Anachi Sasuke, and welcome back to Holiday Week. And this episode, I decided to do Our Lady of Guadalupe from Mexico, and also Saint Lucia from Sweden. So, the first thing, I have a bit more about Guadalupe than I do about Saint Lucia, and I'm sorry about that for anyone who watches my videos and is partial to Saint Lucia. But I'm going to start with Our Lady of Guadalupe. Hopefully I'm saying that right, since I have more information about that one than the other. So the first thing is going to be the story of, and the second thing is going to be a page I found of things that people do for it. So, on December 9th, 1531 in Mexico, Our Lady appeared to Juan Diego, a poor, humble Aztec Indian who had recently converted to the Catholic faith. Okay. She asked him to go to the bishop and tell him to build a church where, she said, "I will show and offer all of my love, my compassion, my help, and my protection to my people." Juan Diego did as she asked, but the bishop asked for a sign that this message was really from Our Lady. Mary granted his request. On December the 12th, she showed Juan where the most beautiful Castilian roses were, and told him to gather them. It was a miracle that the roses were there, and in bloom because there was frost on the ground, and the ground was an infertile place, where only cactus and thistles grew. After he gathered them, she helped arrange them in his tilma, or poncho, and told him to show them to the bishop. When he brought them to the bishop was amazed at the roses, but even more amazed at what began to happen to Juan Diego's tilma. Right before their very eyes, the image of Our Lady began to form on the cloth. The picture of Mary was beautiful, and the bishop fell to his knees. He had the church built at her request. The tilma is still intact after 470 years. The colors have not faded, and the cloth is not deteriorated. It has been on display in the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe for all this time. The manner in which Our Lady appeared on the tilma was very significant to the Aztec Indians. God had her dressed in a way that they would understand who she was. She was dressed in royal clothes that showed that she was very important, perhaps a queen. She also had the symbol of the cross at her neck, which was the same symbol the Spaniards had on their ships and in the churches they built. She had a sash tied around her waist, which meant that she was with child, for this was the way the Aztec women dressed when they were pregnant. And on her beautiful dress were all sorts of designs and flowers, but there was one flower on her dress that was very significant. It only had 4 petals. To the Aztecs, this 4-petal flower was the symbol for the true God, the God above all gods. This flower was located on her abdomen, right over the place where Jesus was growing inside her. The Aztecs immediately understood that this was the mother of the true God. Okay, so Our Lady of Guadalupe is, Mary. I don't remember if she had a last name or a title. I can only remember Mary. But that Mary. This appearance of Our Lady of Guadalupe was very important to the history of our continent. You see, the Aztec Indians and the Spaniards were on the brink of war. The Aztec Indians' culture and religion were very different from the Spaniards. They worshipped gods to whom they would offer human sacrifices, often killing 50,000 people a year. The Spaniards, who were Catholic, were naturally disgusted by this, but they were cruel to the Aztecs too, treating them like animals and sometimes killing them for no reason. If a war had occurred, it would have been very brutal, and the Spaniards and Christianity would have been totally wiped out. Are you sure about that? I don't think that's how that would have went down. Which is to say, I don't think Christianity would have been wiped out by that war. Mary's appearance changed everything, however. It helped the Indians to embrace Christianity, and it helped the Spaniards to treat the Indians with respect and as human beings. In the course of 7 years, 6 million Indians converted to the Catholic faith. This was the biggest conversion in the history of the church. This is why Our Lady of Guadalupe is the patroness of the Americas. Juan Diego, the humble man to whom she appeared, was canonized in the summer of 2002. That long? Mary's appearance also put an end to the worship of stone gods and the ritual of human sacrifice. We pray for Mary's help today to bring an end to the human sacrifice of God's children through abortion and to convert non-believers. Our Lady of Guadalupe is also called the patroness of the unborn. I'm not going to comment on that. Our Lady of Guadalupe. Okay, so Our Lady of Guadalupe description, history, and facts. This is about 5 to 6 minutes long. I got this from Britannica.com. Our Lady of Guadalupe, Spanish Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, also called the Virgin of Guadalupe. In Roman Catholicism, the Virgin Mary and her appearance before Saint Juan Diego in a vision in 1531. The name also refers to the Marian apparition itself. Our Lady of Guadalupe holds a special place in the religious life of Mexico and is one of the most most popular religious devotions. Her image has played an important role as a national symbol of Mexico. Virgin of Guadalupe, Oh, let's just talk about the picture. It's oil on canvas by Antonio de Torres, circa 1720, in the collection of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, California. That's a nice picture. According to tradition, Mary appeared to Juan Diego, who was we read that. She requested that the shrine be built on Tepeyac Hill, now a suburb of Mexico City. The bishop demanded a sign, opened his cloak, dozens of roses fell. The image is now venerated in the Basilica of Guadalupe. The traditional view has been questioned by various scholars and ecclesiastics, including the former abbot of the Basilica of Guadalupe. The primary objection is that there is no documentary evidence for the apparition until 1648. Critics claim that documents purporting to be from the 16th century are actually from the 17th. Critics have also noted that the bishop approached by Juan Diego was not consecrated until 1534, and he makes no mention of Juan Diego or of Our Lady of Guadalupe in his writings. Defenders of the Virgin of Guadalupe, including Pope John Paul II, who canonized Juan Diego and declared Our Lady of Guadalupe the patroness of the Americas, accept the authenticity of the early documents and point also to various oral accounts of the apparition. John Paul's actions were only the latest in a series of developments affirming the importance of Our Lady of Guadalupe. A shrine to the Virgin has existed on the site since at least 1556, when the Archbishop of New Spain promoted devotion to the image of Mary at a chapel in Tepeyac. The image was described by an English prisoner in Mexico City in 1568, and by the end of the 16th century, Our Lady of Guadalupe formed part of a wide network of shrines to the Virgin throughout Mexico. The story of Mary's appearance to Juan Diego was codified in the work of Miguel Sanchez in 1648, and in an account in the indigenous language, Nahuatl, I probably said that wrong, I apologize, was published in 1649 and widely accepted as accurate. The devotion continued to grow, especially after Our Lady of Guadalupe was credited with ending a deadly epidemic of hemorrhagic fever that ravaged Mexico City in 1736-37. In 1737, she was proclaimed patroness of Mexico City, and in 1746, her patronage was accepted by all the territories of New Spain, which included part of present-day California, as well as Mexico, and regions as far south as Guatemala and El Salvador. New Spain. In 1754, Pope Benedict XIV approved her patronage and granted her a proper feast and mass for December the 12th. Pope Pius X proclaimed her patroness of Latin America in 1910, and in 1935 Pius XI approved her patronage over the Philippines. Okay. Veneration of Our Lady of Guadalupe has been particularly strong among women, especially in Mexico, and since at least the early 18th century, the devotion was spread throughout the world by the Jesuits and other religious. The old Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe, Mexico City. Doesn't look that old, but I'm not going to say that. Our Lady of Guadalupe's role in Mexican history is not limited to religious matters. She has played an important role in Mexican nationalism and identity. In 1810, Miguel Hidalgo y Castilla, or it might be Castilla, promoted her as the patroness of the revolt he led against the Spanish. The image of the Virgin of Guadalupe appeared on the rebels' banners, and the rebels' battle cry was, "Long live Our Lady of Guadalupe!" During a religious revival in Mexico in the late 19th century, preachers declared that the foundation of Mexico could be dated to the time of the apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe, because she freed the people from idolatry and reconciled the Spanish and indigenous peoples in a common devotion. Emiliano Zapata's peasant rebels carried the banner of Our Lady when they entered Mexico City in 1914, and during the Civil War in Mexico 1926-29, the banners of the rebels bore her image. Her continuing significance as a religious and national symbol is attested by the hundreds of thousands of pilgrims who visit her shrine every year. I want to see a picture of the thing. I just forgot what it was called, so I have to go back. I think it was a Tamil? Let's see. Tilma. I was close. Search to Google. Wow, that sure did immediately know what I was talking about. Okay. Image on the tilma. Was this the image? The image of Our Lady is actually an Aztec pictograph that was read and interpreted quickly by the Aztec Indians. The lady stood in front of the sun. She was greater than their dreaded sun god. Her foot rested on the crescent moon. She clearly vanquished their foremost deity, the feather serpent. The stars shone across the mantle. Virgin Queen. The blue-green hue of her mantle, she was a queen, for she wears the color of royalty. The black cross on the brooch of her neck, her god was that of the Spanish missionaries, Jesus Christ, her son. The black belt, she was with child, for she wore the Aztec maternity belt. The four-petal flower, she was the mother of God. The flower was a special symbol of life. Hands were joined in prayer. She was not God, but clearly there was one greater than her, and she pointed her finger to the cross on her brooch. The design on her rose-colored garment, she's the queen of the earth, for she's wearing a map of Mexico telling the Indians exactly where the apparition took place. And then there's what modern science has to say about the tilma. The image to this date cannot be explained by science. The image shows no sign of deterioration after 450 years. The cloak of Juan Diego, on which the image has been imprinted, is a coarse fabric made from the threads of the mangue cactus. This fiber disintegrates within 20 to 60 years. There is no undersketch, no sizing, and no protective overvarnish on the image. Microscopic examination revealed there were no brush strokes. The image seems to increase in size and change colors due to an unknown property of the surface and substance of which it is made. According to Kodak of Mexico, the image is smooth and feels like a modern-day photograph, produced 300 years before the invention of photography. The image has consistently defied exact reproduction, whether by brush or camera. Several images can be seen reflected in the eyes of the Virgin. Yeah, it is believed to be the images of Juan Diego, Bishop Juan Zumaraga, Juan Gonzalez the interpreter, and others. Lots of Juans happening here. The distortion in place of the images are identical to what is produced in the normal eye, which is impossible to obtain on a flat surface. The stars on Our Lady's mantle coincide with the constellation in the sky on December 12, 1531. All who have scientifically examined the image of Our Lady over the centuries confess that its properties are absolutely unique and so inexplicable in human terms that the image can only be supernatural. Okay, so we did get to see the picture before. I just didn't know that that was supposed to be the picture because it didn't specify. Oh, and this website is the Church of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Ah, okay. Well, that explains why that would be there then. So close that, close that, close that, and that brings us to Lucia, which is on Sweden.se. Culture and Traditions, Lucia. So I actually found this on the, I believe it might be Sweden's, what's the word, tourism website? But I had some difficulty finding information about Lucia other than this, and I figured that it would be okay to use just this as long as I do another holiday in the same video, and I figured I'd do the both of them. So the annual Candlelit Lucia procession on the 13th of December is perhaps one of the more exotic-looking Swedish customs, with girls and boys clad in white full-length gowns singing songs together. Also, the fact that they happen back-to-back, as far as one happening on the 12th and one happening on the 13th, that was the other reason I was thinking of doing them in the same video together. I just forgot. So, white gowns, stars, and candles. The real candles once used are now often battery-powered, but there's still a special atmosphere when the lights are dimmed and the sound of the children singing grows as they enter from an adjacent room. Tradition has it that Lucia is to wear light in her hair, which in practice means a crown of electric candles and a wreath on her head. Each of her handmaidens carries a candle too. Parents gather in the dark with their mobile cameras at the ready. The star boys, who, like the handmaidens, are dressed in white gowns, carry stars on sticks and have tall paper cones on their heads. The brownies bring up the rear carrying small lanterns. The what? Is there going to be an explanation of that? Let's say Swedish Lucia for dummies. So, there's a picture of Lucia. Oh, there's a video.
December 13 isn't a date in Sweden, it's Lucia. On this day, two things are inescapable. A, it's cold, and B, it's dark. To fight the dark, light was needed. The Lucia tradition can be traced back to St. Lucia of Syracuse in Italy. No wonder Swedes celebrate her every year. According to old heathen and pagan myths, this was a night when evil dark spirits liked to roam and animals became possessed and started to talk. But as usual in Sweden, when it comes to traditions, the why is less important than the how. The first thing you need to do is to make lucibulle, or saffron buns. Saffron is a controlled substance and only sold at supermarket counters. Everyone cheats on the ginger biscuits, pepparkaka in Swedish, and buys the pre-made dough. Advanced bakers and show-offs make gingerbread houses too, and put them out on Facebook. make sure you have some plonk handy for mulled wine, or glögg as the Swedes call it. Pour in your spices and then watch it like a hawk so it doesn't boil, or Lucia won't be quite as much fun. Lucia fronts a band of singing handmaidens, Santas, star boys and gingerbread men. Don't feel bad if you're last in line in a brown one-piece. Everyone serves a purpose. From dawn to dusk, processions take place in homes, schools, churches, hospitals and offices, and bring tears to most people's eyes. One of the catchiest numbers is the tip-tap song. But what really gets you in the Christmas spirit is the theme tune, sang to Lucia. Only Lucia gets to wear candles in her hair, the rest have to carry theirs. The ever-cautious Swede goes for fake candles these days. Less fires that way, especially in daycare centers. It's practically impossible not to attend at least one Lucia procession. Your colleagues, neighbors, children will make sure of that. Or there's Sweden's Lucia on TV. Every year, Sweden votes for its favorite Lucia in a nationwide contest. Although the winner isn't judged on her voice, she must love children and, of course, desire world peace, just like Miss World. If you can't make it to Sweden at this time of year, by all means try it at home, or head to a Swedish embassy, consulate or church to see the pros in action.
Well, that was interesting. It was a bit more sarcastic than I was expecting it to be, but it sounds like Sweden is a happier country than the country I'm in, so I can understand that. Also, it looks like the thing with the brownies is actually gingerbread men. So now I'm wondering if this is where gingerbread men came from, or if gingerbread men were sort of adapted for this. Let's see. There's things here, but there's also stuff on the sidebar. Lots of stuff on the sidebar. So, Swedish Lucia, the origins. The Lucia tradition can be traced back to both the martyr Saint Lucia of Syracuse, died 304, and to the Swedish legend of Lucia as Adam's first wife. What? It is said that she consorted with the devil and that her children were invisible infernals. The name may be associated with both Lux, light, and Lucifer, Satan, and its origins are difficult to determine. The present custom appears to be a blend of traditions. And in the old almanac, Lucia night was the longest of the year. It was a dangerous night when supernatural beings were abroad and animals could speak. By morning, the livestock needed extra feed. People, too, needed extra nourishment and were urged to eat 7 or 9 hearty breakfasts. Dang. The last person to rise that morning was nicknamed Loose the Louse, and often given a playful beating around the legs with birch twigs. An agrarian in Sweden, young people used to dress up as Lucia figures. I couldn't even almost pronounce that. I might, it looks like it's Lusgabar? Lusgabar? I don't think I've ever heard Sweden spoken, or Swedish, not Sweden, that night, and wander from house to house singing songs and scrounging for food and schnapps. The first recorded appearance of a white-clad Lucia in Sweden was in a country house in 1764. The custom did not become universally popular in Swedish society until the 1900s, when schools and local associations in particular began promoting it. The old Lusgabar custom virtually disappeared with urban migration, and the white-clad Lucias with their singing processions were considered a more acceptable, controlled form of celebration than youthful carousals of the past. Stockholm proclaimed its first Lucia in 1927. The custom whereby Lucia serves coffee and buns dates back to the 1880s. Okay, now then, who gets to be Lucia? There used to be a competition for the role on national TV as well as on a local level in towns and schools all over the country. Local newspapers invited subscribers to vote for one of the or other of the candidates. Today, no national Lucia of Sweden is elected, and schools often let chance decide who's to be Lucia, for example by organizing a draw. In general, Sweden avoids ranking people, which is why beauty contests and homecoming queens events are rare. The Lucia celebration used to be an exception until it was deemed obsolete. That just sort of reinforces my thing of Sweden being a happier country than the one I'm in, because, whoo man, are there a lot of popularity and beauty contests in this country. Oh man. Lucia, the bearer of light. Alongside Midsummer, the Lucia celebrations represent one of the foremost cultural traditions in Sweden, with their clear reference to life in the peasant communities of old. Darkness and light, cold and warmth. Lucia is an ancient mythical figure with an abiding role as a bearer of light in the dark Swedish winters. The many Lucia songs all have the same theme. I don't know how they sound, so I'm not going to sing it, but I'll read it. The night treads heavily around yards and dwellings, in places unreached by sun. The shadows brood into our house she comes, bearing lighted candles, St. Lucia, St. Lucia. Maybe I should look up a St. Lucia song, see how it sounds. All Swedes know the standard Lucia song by heart, and everyone can sing it in or out of tune. Well, I'm not a Swede, so there you go. On the mornings of Lucia Day, the radio plays some rather more expert renderings by school choirs or the like. The Lucia celebrations also include ginger snaps and sweet saffron-flavored buns. Luskatar. Shaped like curled-up cats and with raisin eyes. You eat them with Swedish mulled wine, glögg, or coffee. Last updated... Oh! They wrote this on the 14th of December. I found it before that, so I guess that update happened after I found it. Let's see if we can find some Lucia songs. Also, I can't help but notice this is the second holiday I've done that said pagan is bad. I'm still going to touch on the 2 pagan holidays, and maybe that'll give me some understanding as to why these other nationalities or religions don't like them. But so far, I don't really know anything about pagan, like, at all. So I'll find that out when I get to it. But first, let's see if we can find some Lucia songs. Lucia songs. Maybe I gotta be more specific. Saint Lucia Day songs. Sweden songs. You gonna hook me up, YouTube? You gonna hook me up? Let's see. This one is the newest of the 3, so let's go to that one. Skip. Okay, that was uploaded by The Local, and it says one of the songs from the 2013 Lucia concert in the lobby of the Local's building. Okay, so I think that about does it for this episode of Holiday Week. In the next episode, I'm looking at covering at least Kwanzaa and Boxing Day. Whether or not I cover that Japanese holiday that they do for New Year's depends on how long the video is after doing Kwanzaa and Boxing Day. And I only found one article each for those, so I'll probably also throw in the Japanese one. And then Friday we'll do the 2 pagan holidays. So, if you liked it, a like and subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you need to do either one of those things. And I will see y'all in the next one. Later!